So what we're going to discuss today will be all about suspension. In our previous video, we have already discussed about the homogeneous and the heterogeneous mixtures, which are the two general kinds of mixture. Under the homogeneous mixture, we have discussed in the last video about solution. So now, under heterogeneous, we're going to focus on the suspensions as a form of heterogeneous. And what are suspensions? Suspensions are heterogeneous mixtures containing larger particles that settle out when left undisturbed. If you're going to just let it stand on a flat surface, then you can see that the two components of the mixtures are just separated into layers. Just like in this case, an oil mixed with water, you can easily see that the oil separated and stayed on top while the water just settles at the bottom. So this kind of mixture is what we call as suspension. There are some substances that do not mix when combined. They just settle at the bottom or float on top. This kind of mixture is called suspension. Substances like oil, soil, sand, and gravel do not mix when placed in water. They just settle out when left undisturbed. Just like in the example here, this is a mixture of sand and water, and you can easily see that the sand has settled on the bottom of the container. So this is an example of a suspension. Gravel and water would settle more quickly because large particles separate rapidly than small or light particles. And that has something to do with the weight of those suspended particles. While water often mixes with other liquids to form solutions, oil and water do not. Water molecules are strongly attracted to each other. It is the same with oil. They are more attracted to their own molecules. When left undisturbed, oil floats above the water because it has lower density than the water. So when we say density, it has something to do with the compactness of the material, the compactness of its molecules. Some suspensions do not separate because the very tiny particles can stay suspended. For example, whole milk. So this is an example of the whole milk, which is straight from the cow. So when we say whole milk, this is unprocessed milk. That is a bit different with the ones that we are seeing from the grocery. Whole milk is a suspension of cream and milk. Peanut butter is a suspension of oil and mashed peanut or crushed peanut. So you can see there the mixture of peanut butter. If you're going to let it stand for a long time in your fridge or in your cupboard, you can see on top of it that there is oil that has formed a layer on top of it. That proves that the peanut butter is really a suspension. Oil and vinegar dressing is also an example of suspension. In this kind of mixture, the particle of one substance scatters through another substance without dissolving. So take note of that. In a suspension, there is no dissolving of any substance that is placed within the mixture. A suspension has larger particles which are visible and settle out when left undisturbed. Other examples of suspensions are tomato juice, fine sand, or silt in water. You can see from the picture an example of suspension wherein one part of it did not dissolve. This is silt in water or soil with. So now we're going to have an activity. Let's see if you have understood our discussion. So the directions of the activity reads, put a check mark if the given mixture is a suspension. So the first example here is gravel and sand. Are we going to put a check mark there or we're just going to leave it blank? Okay, you're right. It is an example of suspension. Next is soft drinks. Okay, you're correct. This is not a suspension. Peanut butter. Correct. This is a suspension. Flour and water. Yes, it's a suspension. So you can see flour settling at the bottom of the mixture. How about vinegar and water? Yes, you're correct. So it's not a suspension, so we're just going to leave it blank. Thank you for watching and watch the other lessons in Science 6 in our next videos.